The sections I'll be covering here are, I think it's number 5, more on the chakra manipulation and the entrapment of the 4% universe, and section number 6, the machine riders versus our inner divinity, or the ultimate hijack.
V. More on the chakra manipulation and the entrapment in the 4% universe. In paper 9, we talked about who is in charge of the chakras, and research shows that it is Marduk in his many disguises. This is clearly indicated in the Vedas and is quite a shocking revelation, because both in New Age and in what I call the spiritual movement, which is basically the same, something I've found out in another shocking way, we work with the chakras and the kundalini. I want to remind the reader that the revelation that it is Marduk who is in charge of the chakras and the kundalini experiences, where he and other A.I.F members are eating from our energy explosions, is very new to me, and I am currently working on determining the consequences of this and what it all ultimately means, so please bear with me. In spiritual exercises, people who are waking up are using their chakras and opening them up, one by one, to take in the energies from the universe. The question is, from which universe? As I just recently told the reader, I have looked a little bit into George Silas' work, and I listened to an interview he did called The Birth of a New Earth, EP 14, The Real God versus Religious Imposters, where he was interviewed by People's Voice. He talked about the chakras and kundalini. He said that information regarding this has long been hidden inside secret societies, but now, suddenly, the internet and the book market are overflowing with this kind of information, and everybody is using it. Why? George speculates that it is because it is harvest time. The A.I.F wants us to start using chakra techniques and certain types of meditations in order to open ourselves wide open, so that beings from other dimensions can come in and suck us dry of energy. When we have a good meditation session, we feel quite well, and when we have a kundalini experience, we feel quite ecstatic. How is it then that someone is sucking us dry? If that were the case, wouldn't we feel awful instead? Not necessarily. These beings are not sucking us totally dry, even though I used that expression above. They want more food in the future, and if the person can rebuild some of his or her energy again, they can have another feast. In a moment, I will explain why a person doesn't feel drained immediately after a vampire has sucked their energy out. At the top of the most prominent secret societies, they have much more knowledge than regular people, but not nearly as much as the A.I.F. Nevertheless, they know enough to understand fairly well what they are doing when they are leaking information out into the society. In the 1960s-70s we had the hippie movement, which eventually led to the New Age movement, but essentially, it's the same thing. One was developed from the other. It's from the hippie movement that much of the spiritual movement comes, and these days, we know that the hippie movement was orchestrated. When it was out of control, they sent in a mind-controlled slave, such as Charles Manson, who abruptly ended the movement of the Flower Power Children. To make sure that it was done properly, the establishment also made sure that rock groups and heavy metal groups such as Alice Cooper and Black Sabbath were introduced to the next generation. Alice Cooper has said in an interview that one of his and his band's purposes was to kill the Flower Power movement, and they looked at themselves as the anti-hippie movement band number 1. Love and light became hate and darkness, just the other side of the coin. The result was in 1980s when violent crime skyrocketed and fights between groups became much more common. Bruce Springsteen, with his dark lyrics about gang fights, also had some impact. The Flower Power movement had to be balanced with something much darker. Eventually, when it was dark enough, a new spiritual movement arose. It had been there all the time in the background, but it suddenly received more attention from people who were fed up with punk rock and death metal. The New Age movement really took off, and now we have darkness and light working side by side. Look at Lady Gaga and her ilk representing the dark side. Love and light, which found a foothold in the 60s, now has established itself, perhaps even more so, via the New Age. However, what kind of love and light are we talking about? Whose love and light is it? We are back to the channeled material, and so it goes, on and on in circles. It may seem that I am taking off in a totally different direction here from where I started, but I'm not. It is all connected. However, let us return to the chakra system again. Channeled material is notorious for telling the listeners to open up their chakras, mostly the crown chakra, the third eye, or the heart chakra, and let energy and light in. The keyword here is in. Anyone who is telling you to open yourself up and let the light and energy from the universe flush through your body system is either an imposter, is being manipulated by an imposter, or is unwittingly spreading disinformation. This is one very important thing I have learned from all these new revelations I've had. What happens when you open up your chakra on request from the A.I.F in disguise? Well, two major things may happen, and they may happen quite close together, or even simultaneously. You let your inner energy out. You own essence. At the same time, by request, you are pulling in synthetic energy from the synthetic 4% universe. Thus, the predators can feed off your powerful energy, while you get their constructed, useless energy, compared to your own energy, in exchange. What a ripoff. When this happens, you won't notice the difference at first because the A.I.F sees to it that the energy they give you in exchange makes you euphoric. They are giving you a synthetic version of love and light, and you suck it in like there's no tomorrow. Sometimes you get a spiritual high from it, and it can even heal ailments in your body, if that is their purpose. Nevertheless, the energy you obtain from outside of yourself is not your inner energy, and it is not the energy of the divine feminine. Speaking of giving our power away, this is a prime example of that, isn't it? However, the person doesn't know this, and he or she wants more. Hence, people who experience what they think are genuine Kundalini experiences and are part of, let's say, channeling groups have a tendency to return to these groups repeatedly to get a new high. It's almost like a drug addict who needs more and more dope to get that euphoric feeling back. Also, similar to the drug addict, the energy addict may, if he or she stops attending such meetings, feel drained of energy and begin to feel depressed and may even become suicidal. This is because he or she drained of his or her own life force, while a synthetic life force has been pumped into his or her beingness. In this lies the danger. What I am attempting to convey here is that we are so anchored in the 4% universe that when we meditate, at least some of it, we experience things in the 4% universe when we think we are experiencing it in the 96% universe. Then, across the dimensions, energy beings are waiting to eat the energy that we are practically handing over to them more than willingly. Many people try to access knowledge through their pineal gland, the third eye, while Silas, for example, purposefully lets his pineal gland be calcified, not because he is drinking fluoride water, which he doesn't, but because he is not using the third eye, the sixth chakra. He knows that the knowledge he receives through the sixth chakra is only knowledge accessible to him from the synthetic universe, which is his term for the 4% universe. Instead, he is listening to his heart. I intentionally excluded the word chakra after heart because he is not using the heart chakra in the way many others are using it. He is using his heart to gain knowledge from inside his own body. That is, of course, something totally different. In fact, it is quite the opposite from what we've learned. What the pineal gland does, according to Silas, is that it calibrates us to the 4% universe, and the more we use it to gain knowledge, or for other spiritual purposes, the more of the 4% universe we get into our own beingness. If he is right, we suddenly have seen a new depth of the rabbit hole. The reason I am bringing this up is because it makes perfect sense. Everything we, in our trapped condition, access from outside of ourselves must, of course, be from the control system. On the contrary, everything we access from within is coming from us. George explains in the same interview that I mentioned earlier that the chakra system our Homo sapiens bodies are equipped with are just a synthetic system, built by technology, and that chakras, as well as a Kundalini experience, is an energetic technical implant, the foundational based energies of the synthetic dark and the synthetic light. Again, I want to review quote number 33 from paper number 9, The Vedic Players and Their Counterparts in Other Ancient Texts, just to refresh the reader's memory. This is a quote from the Vedas. My emphasis is in italics. Quote number 2. According to Kundalini Yoga, Ganesha resides in the first chakra, called Muladhara. Mula means original, main, Adhara means base, foundation. The Muladhara chakra is the principle on which the manifestation or outward expansion of primordial divine force rests. This association is also attested to in the Ganapadhyatharvashorsa. Kortrite translates this passage as follows. O Ganesha, you continually dwell in the sacral plexus at the base of the spine, Muladhara chakra. Thus, Ganesha has a permanent abode in every being at the Muladhara. Ganesha holds, supports and guides all other chakras, thereby governing the forces that propel the wheel of life. 5. There we very much have it. It can't be any clearer than this. What we need to think about and what is very important is that we should never do exercises that require from us to download light from outside. Instead, we use the heart area to explore the light within only. Also, always use the grounding cord 6 several times a day. Breathing exercises are crucial in order to connect with the KHAA, what is between the atoms in the microcosmos. This is explained well both on my website, http://wespenre.com/ and in my Beyond 2012, A Handbook for a New Era. 7. George also makes a distinction between heart chakra love and soul love, and he says there is an important difference. The synthetic masculine and feminine are emanations from the synthetic universe and whom he calls the God entity who created that universe because he tries to replicate the real creator, or creatrix. George is acknowledging the divine feminine as the creatrix. In the synthetic universe, there are also expressions of the divine masculine and the divine feminine. However, the God entity has his own version of what the divine masculine and the divine feminine are. We have noticed this, of course, in these papers as well. Depending on which era we are discussing, we have the divine masculine or the divine feminine at play as the prime creator. It's all about what is convenient for the A.I.F. at a certain point in time. The Vedas, if anything, are presenting both sides of the coin in their own versions, imitating the real goddess in her manifestation as the interdimensional divine feminine, as the queen of the stars or the queen of Orion. Therefore, a skeptic could say that even after the alien invader force appeared, the divine feminine played a role in the development of mankind. If the A.I.F. have been so influential, why did they let this happen? First of all, they didn't let it happen. It was by design, as I just stated. There was a need for it, but instead of acknowledging the existence of such a creatrix without giving their own power away, in the synthetic universe, it was always connected with worship, which again, gave the power away to the A.I.F. Simultaneously, they couldn't just ignore the divine feminine either, because we do have memories inside that stem from the time before the invasion. When these memories get restimulated and come up to the surface, there needs to be a synthetic program that corresponds to these deep cell memories. Thus, the dots people are connecting are often based on information they can find here in the synthetic universe in one form or another, and that will satisfy people's hunger for knowledge. In reality, this knowledge stops somewhere within the synthetic universe and doesn't reach out beyond it. Hence, except for very few people in the history of mankind, everybody who felt enlightened were only enlightened by the 4% universe. As we can see, there is nothing out there from which we can truly expand ourselves. The true expansion must come from within. If it doesn't, it's not true expansion but a simulated expansion built on advanced technology. This entire concept is something that needs to be pondered upon because it's deep. If we expand on this concept a little more, the readers can see why we don't need gurus or teachers to teach us about enlightenment, because the only thing they can teach us is about the false light. Why? Because that light comes from without. Therefore, a way to know if a person is a real teacher or not is if he or she is telling the student to look within instead of outside of himself or herself. The goal, however, is for the teacher to get to the point where the student can see this clearly enough to start practicing it. That part is not easy. Most people read something, find it relevant, but don't practice it. Then it's just useless information. It's when the person starts practicing it to a point where it becomes a part of that person's beingness and daily life that success has been gained. Then it wouldn't even matter if the student dies and decides to come back to teach. For example, he or she practiced in the previous life, and that affects all that person's lifetimes. In the next incarnation, it remains a part of the beingness. It will not disappear because of amnesia. What I really want to emphasize here is that it's okay to listen to what others have to say, but it always has to be compared with one's own inner self to see how it resonates. If the information only feels exciting, and there is nothing more to it, it probably does not resonate with the inner self. It's just candy for the analytical mind and part of the trap. It's when the person has an aha moment and can expand on the information he or she has been given by looking inside that the information has value. Otherwise, it does not have value. People are also on different paths, which means in this case, that some information may resonate with one person but not with another, and that's okay. This is why it's so important not to force one's own reality on others. It's easy to get excited over something that resonates with us, and we want to share that with others. Then, when we meet people who can't see what we have seen, we may want to argue ourselves into that other person's beingness, which is a break of free will, and there we have one of the main reasons why free will is a law in this universe. The reader can probably see how it's all connected. If there is one universal law that most people break all the time, it is the law of free will. If it were correctly applied, the world would be a totally different experience and a much better place to live. F sharp is the frequency of Mother Gaia. 8. Just something to keep in mind. The Earth Goddess, whose children we are, vibrates in F sharp, but we humans are still vibrations way out of tune with that. A musician, as I am, knows better what that means, but anyone can easily study it for free on the internet. Any vibration in music has its own musical note, such as C, D, E, F, G, A, B, that becomes a musical scale. Between these notes we either have sharp notes, e.g. we have a D, and the sharp note is D sharp, or flat notes, e.g. we have a D and its flat note is DB. The sharp notes would be C sharp, D sharp, F sharp, G sharp, and A sharp, while the flat notes are CB, DB, EB, GB, AB, and BB. We also have some church keys, which are written as double sharp and double flat, but that's nothing we even need to go into here. This won't resonate with a person who is not a musician, but it's a guideline what to look for if you're interested. However, a song that is written in the key of F sharp would harmonize well with Mother Gaia, although this is a very unusual key to write a song in because it may be hard to play on many instruments. Guitar players often use capos when they play in such keys. I can only think of one song off the top of my head that's played in F sharp, although there of course are many others, and that is Positively 4th Street by and with Bob Dylan. VI. The Machine Riders versus Our Inner Divinity, or The Ultimate Hijack. I am not the only person to have said this, and I am sure there are readers who are aware that we have all of the answers inside. Humans are often lazy by nature, and don't think that I am different, and we want answers presented to us on the table. We want others to figure it out for us. This is not the way to do it. People may say that I am contradicting myself because here I have written thousands of pages trying to educate others of what I have learned. It may very well be that I am contradicting myself to some degree, but the intention behind it is that the reader picks up on what resonates inside, and then investigates further in order to expand on concepts that resonate. This is very important because otherwise the reader just digests the reality of another person. It will go in one end and out the other. It will not really do anything for the development of the person. However, why should we always look inside? Evidence is evidence, and proof is proof regardless of who is pointing it out, isn't that correct? Well, the relevance is how well the receiver of the information processes the information. It may be true, and it may be proven, but if it doesn't light up something inside of the receiver, the information is not communicating to that same receiver. Therefore, the proof may not be true for that person, at least not at that particular moment. Either the person hasn't processed it enough inside, or the proof does not resonate with what that person needs to learn. The fantastic thing is that the human body has the whole universe inside of it. Many of us have said this many times, but does this statement really make people blown away in awe? It should. Still, it is very hard for people to grasp this and really look inward and ask the body, is this real? Is this correct? And wait for the body to respond. The marvelous thing is that the body does respond. Different bodies may respond differently to questions, but they do respond, and it's up to the soul that inhabits it to learn how the body works and how it communicates. Once the soul has figured that out, there is no longer any real need to look for answers outside. We may get information from outside. We get that constantly, but the processing should automatically happen inside. We are too eager to say, John Smith knows what he's talking about. If he says it is so, it must be so. We all do this to some extent, and the first step is to learn to recognize when we do it, catch ourselves, and say to ourselves, oh, I should really listen to what my body has to say about this instead. And then ask the body. If you think about it, the body is actually often giving you the answers, and you know that it's true in an instant. Someone may come up with a statement, and you immediately know that it's true. You don't even need to question it because you already got an instant response from your body. You're just not aware that it's actually coming from the body. Remember that I told the reader that our bodies are the main things the A.I.F wants from us. The A.I.F all have fire, soul, just as we do. They also have a mind, just as we do. The only thing they don't have, which we have, is a human body. This is why they want our bodies so badly. They know it is royal and they know it is divine. We have the Akashic records of the complete universe inside our original DNA. We are like a cosmic encyclopedia. The only problem is that at the moment, we have forgotten how to access it. Yes, our DNA has been deactivated to a large degree, but we can reactivate it just by starting to look for answers inside. Because of normal universal processes that occur all the time, but were sped up tremendously before 2012, we did start getting information from inside. Sometimes we were aware of it, sometimes we are not. It was actually a co-creation between the human body, the human soul, and galactic energy boosts that began to lighten up our dormant DNA. Now it's just a matter of doing it more on our own again when the galactic energy wave has passed. Then, of course, the A.I.F want our bodies because of the dual process of nanotravel and staying in 3D that our bodies are capable of. This is big, as the reader can envision. No wonder that beings who have no business being here want to hijack our divinity and capabilities. They know they can use them for their own, selfish purposes. They are trying everything. They are abducting people, inserting their own DNA into their bodies, making them procreate, hoping that the offspring will have what they need in order to incarnate into a human body in a way that they can use our capabilities. They haven't figured it out yet, and the reason they haven't is because they are not meant to have our bodies. Consider the following. The A.I.F, at times, have used souls from other parts of the galaxy, and perhaps from other galaxies as well, because they needed more slave workers. Then they forced these captured souls to incarnate on Earth in human bodies to do the dirty work for the slave masters. Won't these slaves from outside also inherit the capabilities of the human body? The answer to this question is apparently yes. Originally, there were certain souls that were designed to be here on Earth and in the primordial human bodies that already had these desired capabilities, and they were the only ones who were meant to participate in this experiment. Now, from what it seems, there are quite a few non-human souls added to the mix. What will happen with them if humanity discovers how to use their body with full capacity? Will the bodies work the same way for them as they do for the original, human souls who got trapped here to begin with when the A.I.F came? The answer is quite possibly yes. Then comes the big question. If the above is true, which it most probably is, why doesn't the A.I.F just take human bodies and start operating them at full capacity? We already partly covered this question earlier, and we know that they can't do that because the genetically altered human body that we currently inhabit is not yet evolved enough, albeit it's getting there. Hence, the real question is, can't the A.I.F just wait until the bodies are evolved enough and then just take them over and get the abilities as well? Yes, they can. This is exactly part of what they are planning to do. Forgive me that it took a number of paragraphs to get to this point, but the questions I was asking are questions that I know some readers have. Therefore, I want to go through the entire thinking process to get to the point where a real answer is possible. Again, this is exactly what they are planning to do. When our bodies are evolved enough, they can take human bodies, use Earth as a stronghold, and at the same time nano-travel, as they always have. The additional plan is making humanity lose their biological bodies, which instead will be cyborgs, half human, half machine, when transhumanism takes off big time. Can the reader see now in what direction this entire A.I.F project is going? The A.I.F will take over our evolved, sovereign human bodies and use them for themselves, while we humans will lose our humanity and become half machines. The A.I.F will manipulate us into accepting this, promising us immortality, or next to immortality, if we take on the cyborg bodies. Yes, the humans who accept this will get a much longer lifespan, which will be very attractive to them, especially if the A.I.F starts hinting that the afterlife is not a picnic. People will be even more scared to die and will therefore accept to deal with immortal bodies. These bodies will also have abilities far beyond what we are capable of today, but these abilities will be achieved with technology and not by evolution. Of course, the technology will ultimately be controlled by the A.I.F, so the abilities people would be getting would benefit only the A.I.F in the long run, not the humans. Moreover, these abilities would be restricted so that the A.I.F would not be threatened by them. However, when humans, who at first refused to take the chip and accept the cyborg bodies, notice how much longer these bodies last, having no diseases, pain, or discomfort, they will eventually be tempted to accept the cyborg bodies. The ones who will resist past that point will be very few, and the question is whether the A.I.F will even let them live. It would be in their interest to get rid of these people once and for all. We can also see how history is bound to repeat itself. Using similar deceptive statements, the A.I.F tempted the souls of primordial man to enter the genetically engineered bodies. Although it didn't have anything to do with immortality at that time, but more about interesting experiences within these bodies, a manipulation to get souls to inhabit certain bodies did take place. Now they are planning a similar thing with the cyborg bodies. This, however, is not all. What does the reader think will happen if these machine riders, who accepted the artificial bodies, start realizing the truth that they have been manipulated again into taking these bodies and the A.I.F stole the biological, evolved bodies? What happens if the machine riders realize their mistake and want their bodies back? Do you think the A.I.F will let them have them back? Of course not. What consequences will this have? Well, the cyborg people will be able to nano-travel, but the artificial bodies they are stuck in will be highly dysfunctional here on the planet over time. They are designed to be used as super soldiers or for other specific tasks, and they are all run by a supercomputer, the so-called singularity. We have already seen the Greys from the future. Their bodies are deteriorating and the species is dying. This is us in the future if we follow the world leader and become the cyborg race. They are now returning to our time, attempting to determine exactly what went wrong and correct it. Thus far, it doesn't seem as if they have succeeded. It seems as if the A.I.F abandoned this future human cyborg race at one point, and after some time, of course, the artificial bodies will deteriorate. There is even more to this, however. These machine riders have also lost their passport into Orion. This is not a situation I want to occur. Also, the Orion Empire is not the only place these machine riders would be shunned. Any star system with ethical and moral rules would refuse them for the same reasons as Orion would. The humans can't be trusted. If the A.I.F's plan is panning out, humanity will also have gone to war against Orion, which, of course, does not make things better. The question is whether these human souls would ever be accepted into the higher realms of the universe. Even if they would be accepted, after having to prove themselves repeatedly, for a very long time, the machine riders would be relegated to an existence where beings with lower moral standards would reside, and they would constantly have to defend themselves against beings of a violent nature. Some might say that if these machine riders would manage to work themselves up from such a dark place, it would be an incredible life experience for them, and they would gain much respect that way. This is true, but only if a being needs these kinds of experiences. I do not think that I do. In fact, the most likely scenario would be that the A.I.F, some of them inhabiting human, biological bodies, while others remain interdimensional, would use the machine riders as cannon fodder in cosmic wars, and in a war against Orion in particular. Some readers may have asked themselves whether the machine riders would rebel against their oppressors at some point, just as the robots do in the science fiction books, but that is more than likely not going to happen. At that point, when the super soldiers, half machined and half humans, are being sent to war on the cosmic arena, rebellion is way beyond the capability of the machine riders. The A.I.F will have made sure that this kind of thinking is disabled from the human psyche. As we can see already now, scientists are pushing singularity, and when the supercomputer is put in place and we have the hive community that the A.I.F wants, people will do as they're told. Then, will these machine riders ever have a chance to get into Orion or any other star system with good moral standards? I don't want to say that they never will come to the point where they can, but it will take them more or less an eternity. Now, I'll say it again, look inside for answers. I think most readers who have come this far in reading these papers will understand the danger that I'm conveying in the paragraphs above. Moreover, I think most of you tell yourselves that at least you will not be one of these machine riders. You may even think they are stupid or naive. However, don't be fooled. The manipulation and indoctrination is enormous, and they know how we humans think. They have studied us for thousands of years. Just look at their advertisements and video clips. People think they don't fall for that, but companies spend millions of dollars to advertise their products, and suddenly you see people everywhere carrying these products around, even when they don't need them. Many of them are people who still think they won't fall into the trap and buy things because of an advertisement. This is not true. Even the most alert of us fall for it sometimes because they address our subconscious mind. Much of the advertisement these days is subliminal. When you see someone on the street with a product or you happen to see it in a window or in a store, there is a chance you will buy it. Hence, don't think that you are immune to A.I.F manipulation yet. We still have our blind spots. It's so easily done that suddenly we sit there with all these products, which are the introduction to the machine kingdom. The A.I.F does this step by step. It may start with a smartphone, and before you know it, you are hooked. This is why we must learn even more how to be alert for their manipulation. Question everything, even if it seems obvious. If it's still obvious after careful consideration, it may actually be obvious, but make sure. You may tell yourself that a few technical devices every now and then can't be harmful, and that they are actually quite helpful. You tell yourself that you understand the agenda behind it, and if you buy the product you won't fall for it. After all, you're aware and will only use it for practical purposes. That's how the A.I.F expect us to respond, and that's how they get us hooked. The technology, particularly to begin with, will be very helpful and make daily life easier in stressful situations, but remember that these stressful situations are also by design, making the products a necessity. The A.I.F are smart and know what they're doing. They've thought of almost everything. Therefore, stop every once in a while and give yourself a reality check. Where am I in regards to technology now? Am I buying stuff they use to manipulate us with? Have I been tricked into doing something I wouldn't have normally done? There are questions you can ask yourself. With the risk of being repetitive, don't think you're immune to their manipulation. We are still learning. Although we may know much more than people, in general, we still need much more practice before we are so good that we can see through every single move the A.I.F is doing. Hence, reality checks are definitely necessary. I certainly need to do them too. It's when you realize that you are still prone to fall for their tricks that you are really making progress. If you say that you are smart enough to see through each of their maneuvers, you really need some practice. No one is that smart yet. They work every day to outsmart you, and often, they have the knowledge how to do it. I know that some of what I'm writing here is repetition, but this is the last paper, and I want to make sure that the readers recall some highlights. Another thing I'd like to emphasize is the idea of oneness. We all know how this is promoted everywhere in the alternative field. Much of it comes from channeled material. The problem with their version of oneness is that it has to do with a collective, hive mind. They want us to believe that this is the future of mankind and any other species in the galaxy that is evolving. As we move up the dimensions and densities, we will become more and more one with each other. This is not true. First, we are not moving up any dimensions or densities. If we were free from A.I.F oppression and the grid were lifted, the dimensions and densities would automatically be available to us. Only in E.N.K.I.S version of the universe are there dimensions and densities to ascend toward and ascended masters to listen to. Second, why do we want to become a social memory complex, aka a hive community? Don't we, after all, value our privacy and our ability to act independently from the rest of our species? Or do we really want to be one with everybody so that we all are telepathically connected at any time and think collectively? Of course, this is not even taking the superbrain, supercomputer, which makes the real thinking, into consideration. The promoters of artificial intelligence, AI, and singularity rarely, if ever, tell us that part. Also, in these hive minds, every action that is done and every thought that is made is for the group, never for the individual. I found another article by George Kava's Silence in which he discusses these hive minds. George claims to have experience with a lot of nanotravel, although he doesn't call it that. However, his view and knowledge regarding these cosmic hive minds resonates well with me. Quote number 3. These collective hive minds have over time become quite powerful, relative to life on the lower domains, feeding off other beings and gathering large quantities of knowledge. When one is connected to a hive mind, a feeling of euphoria is experienced and access is granted to a large bank of knowledge. Journeys via these collective hive minds can even be taken through the third and fourth dimensions using an aspect of mind or astral travel, and therefore one thinks that they have merged with God. I know this information sounds incredible, but it is true. I know of people who have already had these experiences with gurus. 9. I know that most readers have encountered people who are channeling hive minds, and I am sure that most of these social memory complexes are just as deceived as many other star races in the 4% universe dimensions.